Salvete omnes, and welcome to this week's video tutorial on Death and Metamorphosis by the great Roman Latin writer Ovid. We have some information about his life and works over here. Arguably, certainly one of the most influential writers in Western literature. This topic will explore the passive, in addition to some other important elements in Latin grammar. Let me pull up our declension chart here for reference as well. Let us read. Legiamos, o genus humanum quod mortem nimium temet, cua pericula mortis temitis. Omnia mutantur, omnia fluent, nihil ad veram mortem venit. Animus erat et in alie capore miscitur, nec manet nec est informe servat, sed informes novas mutatur. Vitas flumen tempora nostra fugiunt et novas sunt semper, nostro corpora semper mutantur, id quod fuimus at sumos non cres erimus. Let's take a look at the first line. And we have O humankind, or O human race. Genus is a word commonly used in the sciences, so we can use our words or a dictionary. Genus, birth, descent, origin, race, family, house, stock, ancestry, offspring, descent, noble birth, kind, sort, variety, class, rank, mode, method, style, fashion, way. As you can see, it can mean a lot of things, only the context will lead you to the best interpretation. Excuse me. So I'm going to go with O humankind, or probably in more idiomatic English, O mankind, but literally O humankind. So let me go ahead and pull up our document here. Oops. O humankind, again, Latin likes to put adjectives after the noun. So this is our noun, genus, and then our adjective, humanum. This is a common noun, hence we have the neuter um ending versus us or a. But O humankind, which fears death too much or excessively. Nimium is an adverb. So let's go ahead and look this up. We can translate this as too much, very, very much, excessive, too great. So maybe we'll go with too much to follow Whitaker's words here. Which fears death too much. Couple additional points here. Going back to chapter 17, we have a relative pronoun quad, referring back to genus humanum. Timet is our verb in the third person singular present tense. We've had this before. It's where we get words like timid. So timio ends in T. So timio, I fear, times, you fear, timet, he fears, it fears, she fears. In this case, it fears, referring back to humankind. Timimus, we fear, timitis, you all fear, timent, they fear. So there's our osmos tisnit. Mortem is our direct object. How do we know that? Because it ends in em. So death is a third declension noun. Third declension accusative singular is em, mortem. And we already discussed the adverb nimium. Cua pericula mortis temitis. In fact, here's a good example. Wheelock does a good job of this. Here we have temet in the third person singular, but then we have temitis in the second person plural. So you all. So why do you all fear the dangers of death? So let me go ahead and write that out, and then I will explain it. Cure is why. Do you all, that's timitis, or do you, remember Latin doesn't use do or does. So tis is second person plural. Once again, I'm not going to do this for all of the words, but I would encourage you to do so. Is, if we type in timitis, you can see it's second conjugation, present, active, indicative, second person plural. So 2p means second person plural, so you all. And in the present tense, and fear, dread, to be afraid. And so that's an important verb to know and how to conjugate it as well. So why do you all fear? Well, fear what? The dangers. So pericula is actually a neuter noun. So this is second declension neuter plural, hence ending in a. How do we know that? Well, if we look it up, we're going to see that that's the case coming from periculum. So here it is, accusative plural, because periculum is the singular form. So this is a neuter noun, which changes the ending in both the, excuse me, in the nominative and the accusative forms. If you compare the second declension neuter with non-neuter, you can see the change happens in the accusative, or excuse me, in the nominative plural, and also in the accusative plural. Why do you fear the dangers of death? We just said a moment ago that mortem is third declension. So third declension genitive singular is is. Genitive means of. We've talked about this before. So of death is how we would read that. Moving on, now here we have our passive, audis tuum muni nuntur. Nuntur, as we saw in the previous lesson, and it's indicated in your book in this chapter. So nuntur is third person plural. Omnia means all. So in this case, all things are being changed. I'm going to go ahead and write that out, and then I will explain it. This also could be read and translated as all things are changing. I'm going to keep the being in there just to emphasize that it is passive, but all things are changing would also work. All things are changing. All things are flowing, literally flowing. Fluent is where we get the word fluvius, river. So we can pull this up here and take a look at our options for vocabulary and translation. All things are flowing. All things are emanating. I'm going to go with flowing. But things almost in flux, going back to Heraclitus. All things are in flux, F-L-U-X. But we'll follow this recommendation and say flow. All things are being changed. All things. Now, omnia could also mean everything. So if you want to say everything is being changed, or everything is changing, or all things, I'm going to say all because both the verbs are in the plural. Hence, they're in the plural form. So I'm going to keep it in the plural. Once again, certain challenges of translation materialize in this exercise. All things are flowing. Nothing comes to a true death, is how the next part reads, I believe. Nothing, nihil, comes, venit, to, ad, a true, veram, death. So veram, where we get veritas, veracity, means true. So nothing comes to a true death. Nothing comes to a true death. The soul wanders. Now, animus could mean the mind or the soul. You have to choose whatever one you think. I'm going to say the soul. In other words, who or what we are inside. You could also say the soul wanders, the soul strays, but the soul errors, literally errors, like an error. But the soul wanders and is being mixed. Miscetur is a word you may see in sciences. We can look this up to give us other options, but it is in the passive because we have the aorist tur. So everything, the soul wanders and is being mixed with other bodies, or is being mingled with other bodies. The idea here is that there's no clear-cut distinction between mind and body, between what we feel inside and what we experience on the outside. So we can go with mix, just to be practical. Oops. The soul wanders and is being mixed with other bodies. Another possible translation of this would be the soul wanders and is being mixed into other bodies, just depending on how you read that image in terms of in alia corpora. It is in the accusative plural form, and so how you read that and interpret it really depends on what your image of the language is and your study of Ovid as a writer and stylist, which kind of goes beyond what we're doing. Animos erat et in alia corpora miscetur. So it's important to recognize this is passive, third person singular. Ends in tur. Nothing remains. Actually, probably in this case, we're going to have to say the soul. So nor does it remain. So this is referring back to the soul, I think. So we'll go. Nor does it remain. Once again, Latin doesn't use do or does, so we can look this up on Whitaker's just to give us some options for vocabulary and translation. Nothing remains, nothing stays, or excuse me, nor does it remain, nor does it stay, nor does it abide, nor does it endure. It might be a little more poetic. It is where we get words like permanent. Nor does it remain, nor does it keep, servat, where we get words like preserve or service. Nor does it preserve the same forms. Same forms is accusative plural, first declension. There's our AS. ASDM means the same. It was the closest that classical Latin got to the as a definite article. So nor does it keep the same forms. That is our direct object, and animus is the subject in this sentence. Nor does it keep the same forms, but is being changed, mutator, like mutation, but is being changed into new forms. Said, going back to chapter 1, conjunction, but is being changed, mutator, so that is third person singular passive, into new forms. There is our accusative plural, noves formes, adjective ending. There's our noun, into new forms. Vitas flumen, life is a river. So this one's fairly straightforward if we know the vocabulary. If not, we should look it up. Life, vita, where we get words like vitality or your vital signs. Curriculum vitae for an academic resume. Life is a river. Life is a river. Literally our times, but our times are fleeting. I'm going to put it in the singular just because I think it sounds better in English, but both the verb and the noun are in the plural form. So literally our times are fleeting. So if you want to put that to keep it more literal, that's fine. I am going to make the change to the singular. Again, I think this recalls the Greek philosopher Heraclitus and the idea of flux. The flux of all things, the mercurialness of all things, the changing nature of all things. Our time is fleeting, and all things are new. Or I guess to bring back to time. So our time is fleeting, and the verb is in the plural, so perhaps it might be better to say our times are fleeting and are always new, because this verb as well is in the plural. Our times, tempora, sunt, semper, always, nova, new. So let me go ahead and add that and make that change as well. Our bodies are always being changed. So here's a good example where this is in the passive because we have the nuntur, but once again, you can often translate passive into active in English just because English prefers that. So if you want to say our bodies are always changing, once again, I'm going to keep it in the passive just to emphasize that concept. Our bodies are always being changed. Our bodies are always changing. Our bodies, nostra corpora, are always being changed. Semper means always. This last part is going to require knowing the irregular forms of the verb to be. So we have id quod fuimus aut sumus non cres erimus. So mus we know means we, so that which we were or are, we will not be tomorrow. So these just have to be memorized, but these are some. So sumos is the form we're most familiar with. So sumos means we are. Fuimus means we were. Erimus means we will be. So those are probably just going to have to be memorized. So that which we were. Or are. We will not be tomorrow. We will, eremos, not be, non. Again, this is the form of be. So in Latin, this says eremos. In English, rather, it's we will be. So English has 3 words. Latin only has 1. Cres, like procrastination, means tomorrow. All right, that was it for today's lesson. Enjoy.